Without further ado now, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to be moving on to our third and final panel session. This session is titled Psychosocial Risk in Practice, the Real Challenges Faced by Safety Professionals. And in this session, we will hear from safety practitioners on the ground who will share real-world challenges, case experiences, and practical approaches in managing psychosocial risks at work. With that, I would like to firstly call upon our moderator, Yang Mulia Tuan Muhammad Ikbar bin Omar. He is the Corporate HSE Manager from Serikandi Industry HSE Group. And he is an experienced HSE professional with over 21 years of experience in the oil and gas, engineering, marine, chemicals, and energy sectors. He currently serves as the Corporate HSE Manager for Serikandi Group of Companies, overseeing HSE governance, compliance, and operational assurance for major projects supporting Brunei Shell Petroleum BSP, Brunei LNG, BLNG. Up next, I would like to call upon our speakers, Yang Mulia Puan Nurliyana binti Mohammad Noor, the Program Director. I would also like to call upon Yang Mulia Tuan Dr. Abdul Malik bin Haji Omar, the General Manager at Megabina Group. I would like to call upon the next speaker, Yang Mulia Puan Nur Khairunnisa binti Muhammad Jasni, the HSE Manager, PETRONAS, Carigali, Brunei. And up next, I would like to call upon Yang Mulia Puan Zirwatul Amal binti Haji Borhanuddin. She is the Deputy Secretary General from OSHWA. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to pass the mic to our moderator.
Very honored. Tahu tadi ambil dari sini dari awal lah. Better yang punya nasinya. Today we will be psychosocial risk in practice, which is a real challenge safety professionals. Now I hope you can hear me well. So first of all, before we start on introducing myself and also our distinguished panel, I must say, we enjoyed the second panel a while ago. We thought it was a controversy in a good way, but it actually answered a lot of questions for the audience, especially at back. So I think that was very, very well done to the panel number 2. And for the anarchy, 5 months, that's not even a bargain. So well done, well done. So anyway, let's start with results. My name is Ikbar, Corporate HSE Manager from Serikandi Group of Companies, and also a member of Industry HSE Group of Brunei. So, over 21 years of experience in oil and gas for HSE, and basically it has been mentioned earlier on. And I think before we begin, I would like to introduce 4 of our distinguished panels for today's event. So, number 1 is Yang Mulia Puan Nurliyana binti Muhammad Noor, which is the Program Director and also the OSH Manager for Sakura Energy in Malaysia. Now, she has served in the industry as a HSE professional for over 13 years, and now she is also in the group of NGO supporting the Malaysia's OHS. So with this topic today, I would say it's a real subject to be discussed, which is the real challenge faced by safety professionals, especially in today's challenge, I would say. And Yang Mulia Puan Nurliyana will be sharing some of the thoughts through her slide presentations today, which also relates to previous episode looking into digitalizations. Our second distinguished panel, Yang Mulia Tuan Dr. Abdul Malik bin Haji Omar, who is also the General Manager for Megabina. Now, Dr. Abdul Malik bin Haji Omar is a Bachelor of Business, and we had a chat a while ago, and he mentioned that it was a challenge to have an opportunity to work as an employee in Brunei. So when he began a Bachelor of Business, he decided to open Megabina with constructions in his own business a few years ago, and today he's one of the successful people that he can do. So with that, he also shared his view and experience based on what he sees, the challenges of safety practitioner in the construction industry. And then moving on, familiar faces. Yang mulia, Puan Khairunnisa, binti Mohammad, Jasni. I know you, it's just that I'm not used to reading. So, she has been a very well-experienced HSE practitioner and also served as a HSE Manager in PETRONAS Brunei. And with her experience over 13 years and a very heavy contributor for industry HSE Group for the past 2 years now, she will be presenting based on real factors on what are the real challenges faced by the safety practitioners today, and something to do with psychologicals and psychosocial risks in the industry. And of course, last but not the least, Yang Mulia Puan Zirwatul Amal, binti Haji Borhanuddin. She is the Deputy Secretary General for OSHWA, who also served more than 10 years as a HSE practitioner in the oil and gas industry. I've known her in PNG before. She was also one of the World Zero agent and the Nurliyana. So let's see you today, and she will also be sharing a real subject that actually, the real challenge that actually faced by the HSE officers and practitioners in the field and in the industry. So, with that, may I please welcome the first panelist to share their slides. And we will be, I'm hoping to have a very interactive sessions after every slides by the respective panelists. So I hope we can have a real discussion so that we can move forward on actions and what we can actually do better regarding some of this subject. Ladies and gentlemen. So I invite Yang Mulia Puan Nurliyana, binti Mohammad, present. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. Alright, so Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Not to forget, thank you Tuan Ikram and also Shena for inviting me here at Brunei. This is the first time for me coming here, and this is a very beautiful building that you guys have here. Okay. Alright. Before I start, I would like to ask every one of you to raise up your right hand by holding your phone. Can you do that for me? Raise up your right hand and holding it. Hold your phone. Okay, next, all the secretariat will take your phone until the end of the session. Can we do that? No? Because we are basically tied to the technology. You know, currently in 2026, after the COVID, after the pandemic, people are positively talk about work remotely, working at home. Even it is a pressure for the employer, but it's something that needs to be done to contain ourselves from that issue, 2020. But moving forth, after that remote working, now we do have AI. And all those processes that you have been doing for almost 20 years, 10 years, it's all been digitalized. Do you agree with me? Yes. Previously, how do you record your incidents? Maybe using your Excel, manual spreadsheet, but currently there are lots of applications out there that demand you to move forward from the manual things to the digitalization. Why it needs to be done? It is because we wanted to be par at our competitor. We wanted to be relevant to the industry. That is why all the business currently moving from manual works to digitalized. But here's to say, let me change this one. All these things come with risks. Am I right? These happen because one word that we call as changes. Change do affect us. Change do impact our work design, our organization, and also our social context. Currently, we can say that. Sorry, I need to change the page. What I can say is that change might affect our job strength. And then definitely, as we know, that it will come with a lot more of work, because we need to change the data that we have in the Excel to the application so that we meet the AI fit, because AI can only fit or react based on our own data. So these changes affect we as the workers. Is it Azan? Maybe we can stop for a while, yeah? Can we stop for Azan now? All right, so these change. What happened to this, to you, to us as a worker upon this change? We have new flowchart, we have new workflow, we have new tools, new data rules, and we have uncertainty because it impacts our job security. Am I right? Do you agree with me? So with those automation, sometimes we think, how long can I stay to this department if all my tasks is already automated? So it creates those psychosocial risks to the employees, and it's come the leadership to play a good role in here. Okay, next, we shall not to forget that every risk, every changes, every improvement will come with an opportunity. So, by having this AI, digitalization, this initiative will lead to the good automation, which will help us, the employee, to be better. And also, it helps us to be flexible, and definitely, it can give us an early warning system so that we can have a risk-based predictive insights. Okay? So this will open much more discussion after this, which is, I believe, this opportunity can only be achieved if we can help to co-design the job to meet our requirement. Next, the pace of the work and also the overload of the work need to be balanced between the job demand and what we need as a human being. Definitely we also have a family to cater in, right? So this job pace and also work demand need to be balanced out. And lastly, definitely, we really hope that data transparency that AI are giving to us will help us to get us to be more skillful in future, especially in developing or creating a good risk-based decision making. Okay? Yeah. So I just skip because I already explained it. And this is a 3 key takeaways that I believe will help us to modify our lifestyle toward this digitalization, which is the early digitalization in psychosocial will be a turning point for us, so that all leaders need to know, I know digitalize is good for a company, but the transformation will need a good pace to be tackled out. Secondly, there is an opportunity. The opportunity is real, even for the employer and the employees. So grab this opportunity. And lastly, there is an action to be taken, which is we need to embed the psychosocial control in every rollout of the project AI that we wanted to play. Okay, that's all for me.
So, I'm going to be a different way from panel 1 and panel 2. So, with respect of every panelist, after each test, I will actually have one voice last, and we will open the floor for the four respective distinguished panelists have done their part. So, I am Nurliyana from Nurliyana. The vision, these are not soft issues, but more operational risks.
Thank you, Tony Crown. Okay, why do I see this as the operational risk? Because who will complete the work? It's either the digital itself or the human being. Siapa yang akan siapkan kerja kita? The human itself, right? By having a stressed worker and overload worker, it will stop you to perform well. So that is why in any digitalization that we are planned to have, we need to know what's the overload projection that we can account to our employee. What are the isolation that we are giving to our employee, and how does it will create a job insecurity to the employees? So these 3 points that need to be taken out before we move to digitalization, so that it will reduce the operational risk.
I like the facts about the new model of the regulations. Of course, there also the impact of using already. And again, for next distinguished speaker, Dr. Abdul Malik, Omar, General Manager, Megabina. Please welcome.
Okay, thank you so much. In the realm of construction, it is often asked, how is the project doing? Rarely do people ask, how's the contractor doing? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome. I bear to you all today here an important message, one that relates to psychosocial risks within the construction sector. I argue that this is an issue that's invisible to the eye, one that cannot be easily seen, but one that does have real life economic impact to us all. As many of the guests and the speakers have mentioned, psychosocial risks have multiple domains, one that touches on mental, emotional, and even the social fabric within an organization and those beyond it. Psychosocial health is often then become the invisible aspects of our society. Here, the invisible risks comes in the form of the loss of autonomy, of being stressed out, or being burnt out, or having such a huge work overload, sleep deprivation, and so much more. All these issues, if compounded, could lead to actual, visible, physical harm. This physical harm includes cuts, falls, spinal injuries, musculoskeletal injuries, chemical exposure, falling objects, and so much more. Hence, then it becomes imperative to look at the global economic cost that's being imposed in the global economy. Every year, due to depression and anxiety, the global economy loses up to $1 trillion US dollars in annual productivity loss. That's about 12 billion working days lost due to high levels of absenteeism, due to burnouts, and so much more. And according to the ILO, nearly a quarter of the workers have faced harassment and violence. Is this acceptable? This has to change. And all of us, perhaps here, as the HSE professionals, play our part in advancing a cause so that these things could be mitigated once and for all. But within the construction sector, despite only making about 2 to 3% of our national GDP, it has the highest rate of fatalities. According to Shena, 61% of deaths and fatalities are concentrated here. So for those who are in the construction sector, it's a very dangerous vocation that has real-life implications for all. And between 2024 to 2025, there's a double-digit increase in the number of incidents of people injuries. So here at Megabina Group, we are not just a normal construction company. We were set up, of course, as a way to find employment for myself. But of course, I got lucky. I've managed to develop a framework to secure all the projects and to complete numerous ones. Our mission is not just to build up a construction sector or to inspire those who wants to be contractors. Our mission is to professionalize the sector so that our local Bruneians can see this as a vocation that they can look into for employment. Here, we don't just build people. We don't just build projects. We are here to build people. And for those who can see, you all can follow my company Instagram. Now, there are two prescriptions that I can offer to all our health and safety practitioners. One of which is for our health HSE officers to look at their own roles, to look beyond the downstream, to look beyond than just doing normal operation, but to step up and to be counted in the boardroom. One that allows us to join and sit down in the boardroom and to get engaged in the formation of our contracts, of the tenders, and to include in those clauses important aspects that relates to health and safety that focuses not just in the physical realm, but one that focuses on the mental health of those workers being involved in the projects. An example, if there's a project, $100,000 project, and then there's a deadline to complete it within 1 month. The money seems good, but within the short period of time, cannot lah. People will burn out. So the HSE could intervene and say this is not acceptable. In fact, if we accept this job, it'll end up leading to further injuries. And who knows, actual injuries do happen, and Shena may step up and say, oh, stop work order, and the whole thing collapses. So HSE needs to become a strategic mandate for all organizations, not just the one doing the auditing. The second part is for HSE officers to look into building what's called the dual competencies. The first part focuses on the physical safety aspects of compliance. Example, like doing toolbox stock, first aid skills, inspecting scaffoldings, auditing to make sure that everything is safe, everyone wearing helmets, and so on and so forth. But it's not enough. We have to look beyond this. We have to enhance our ability to look and to safeguard the psychosocial safety of our workforce and within the organization and beyond. Here we can look into identifying unrealistic scheduling to ensure that an individual, if they're so stressed out or always missing, we have to ask them the hard questions. What happened? Is there any issues? So that we can reduce the incidence of psychosocial risks such as burnouts, fatigue, and so much more. So to conclude, HSE professionals, at least within the construction sector, we have to build up dual competencies to safeguard both the bodies and the mind of our workforce. Here, ultimately, our aim is to bring visibility to an often invisible issue, and that is of psychosocial risks. We want to create a situation where instead of people always asking, how's the project doing? We want to create a condition where the first thing people could ask, how are the contractor and people behind the project doing? Together we build, together we succeed. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nurliyana, I'm impressed with the journey that you have started 3 years ago. And the way you presented really reflects also presenting the people organized. So, with that, I just want to ask you, what are actually the key message to like the organization and industry leaders to remember regarding psychological risk management?
The key thing is for organizations to see physical and psychosocial risks as one of the same. Because if one is affected, then the other leads to physical injuries themselves. For example, if a person is too fatigued, if a person is too burnt out, if a person is sleep deprivation, this could lead to a decrease in 50% of their reaction time. What would happen? Then there's a chance that they may injure themselves, like cutting something and then suddenly bad things happen. So I hope that more organizations can see this as not just a side thing, but something central to safeguard our workers' health. And it can bring about additional benefits in the form of increased productivity and success of an organization.
Thank you. It's very interesting. Thank you again, Nurliyana and Dr. Malik. So the next panelist, not a stranger, we have Khairunnisa, we have Jasni.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Good afternoon, everyone. As you all know, I started my career in HSE over 14 years ago. So I started doing mostly exploration drilling projects, managing corporate HSE, and after that, I'm now into a more challenging task, which is the ultra deep water development project in Brunei. So over the years, I've learned a lot about being in HSE is it's just not about managing incidents. Alhamdulillah, for PETRONAS Carigali Brunei, we didn't have so far, in terms of our incident records, 0 LTI, alhamdulillah, because in terms of activities, we are quite, there's not a lot of physical activities to date yet compared to other operators. But it's just not about physical, when you talk about incidents, it's actually more beyond that. So you talk about something that you cannot see. So I think our distinguished panel speakers mentioned earlier, it's just not about managing the things that you can see, meaning to say people get injured and all that, but it goes beyond that. So what I want to focus on today is like, what are actually the HSE people, HSE practitioners are facing at site, at location, in the office, when dealing with psychosocial risk. I don't know how many of you are in HSE department, or maybe interested to be in HSE here in this room. I know Ramzi, what do you mean? My friend Ramzi from BMC. So I see a lot of HSE practitioners here. So I hope what I'm sharing here is something that we all are facing. Yeah? So moving on to my slide. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, so in high-risk activities or workplace, such as oil and gas, we see physical hazards and psychosocial risks stand hand in hand. So they are all both together. So I think Dr. Malik earlier mentioned that it should be hand in hand. So similarly, in oil and gas, we see that, it carries both the same level. So as HSE practitioners, we are not only tasked with safety performance, as I mentioned, but increasingly, we are tasked in terms of managing stress, fatigue, mental health concerns, and overall workforce well-being. So yet we are also, HSE practitioners are also exposed to the same pressures. So we talk about long hours, high expectations, and increasingly constant operational demands. So basically this creates a gap. Those responsible for managing psychosocial risks may not be adequately supported themselves. And if left unaddressed, this impacts not only individual well-being, but also overall organizational performance. Yeah, you talk about safety performance, you talk about, productivity of the organization. So it does play a bigger role here. So this slide basically shows you some of the typical examples of the challenges that we face. Tuan Osmera, maybe you can vouch me whether you agree with me. These are the challenges that we're facing. Yeah. First one is role conflict. I'll give you an example. Imagine HSE officer offshore who starts the day with a safety audit, typical. It's part of the plan program, HSE audit inspection. And after that, gets called to run an emergency drill. Yeah, and later had to counsel a worker who is stressed about family back home. So this is what role conflict is all about. So balancing these roles can be exhausting and challenging for HSE, and it means less focus on the core safety duties. Yeah, so that's what role conflict is all about. Secondly, it's about high-risk environments. So in oil and gas, on remote offshore rigs, for example, there may be no counselor, no psychologist available. And sometimes worker, when they feel anxious or fatigued, they would go to HSE. HSE, tolong stress. I've been offshore for like more than 2 weeks, so I want to go home and all that. So HSE, on top of that, at the same time, we have working long hours, long shifts, and maybe on call 24/7. So basically blurring the line between work and rest. So that can be challenging for HSE. Yeah? And thirdly, this focuses on cultural stigma. In a male-dominated work environment, sometimes workers feel embarrassed or shy to admit that they are stressed. It's just not manly enough. HSE, even though it's like woman in HSE, you need to be strong. You need to, you have to keep up with all these responsibilities because you're managing people, right? So, for example, there's a technician struggling with fatigue might say nothing until it affects his performance because to them it is not normal for man or woman in offshore, for example, environment to say that. So this silence makes it hard for us HSE officers to manage the risk early. Sometimes when problems become worse, that's when we have to manage and mitigate. So often after an incident, often after a mistake was made. So that is actually a challenge. And lastly, who cares about HSE practitioner? So you have all the good programs implementation in place, but sometimes we forget that these programs, plans, implementations are also for us. So for example, after a serious incident, the officer may spend hours supporting the crew, but he himself has no one to talk to. I kind of feel glad because Panos Mera nod his head, so I'm glad that he agrees with me with that. Yeah. So overall, ladies and gentlemen, while we are at the forefront of managing psychosocial risk, we are also increasingly exposed to them ourselves. So this brings us to the key question: how do we protect and support those managing psychosocial risk? So there's actually 2 slides to this. First one is a very general one. Yeah, I think a lot of the panel speakers have already mentioned in a way. I think Tuan CEO earlier from Standard Chartered mentioned all the benefits, all the employee assistance program being provided in the organization. So that's actually one of them that we can do. But what I want to highlight here is that training and role clarity is very important. Sometimes we feel like, okay, HSE is there to solve the problem. No. Actually, by giving the right training, you actually are making it clear for the HSE practitioners that, reinforcing boundaries to guide our employees to the right channel. So, sekiranya your company has an employee assistance program, all you need to do is to find ways to direct this person. If you think that this person is not well, in terms of mentally or physically, you can direct them to this EAP. If you guys are lucky lah, if ada that channel. Yeah? So secondly is strengthening leadership. We talk about leaders' role here. So again, to me, this is very critical because leaders need to role model active listening, acknowledging challenges that employees are facing, and provide mentoring. So example of EAP is a good initiative. So when leaders acknowledge the importance of a EAP, and whatever system, can be a simple one, doesn't have to be an expensive, programs or system to put in place. This actually can help to manage psychosocial risks at the workplace among the HSE practitioners. And next is supportive psychosocial environment. It's not really just about you talking to leaders openly, but also having that peer support. Peer support, yeah? Which promotes open dialogue and speak-up culture, encourage peer support to reduce isolation. And next is self-care and work-life balance. What we need to do is position self-care as a core safety practice. So you don't see self-care, like you going out for a holiday is a problem to the company, but it's actually a readiness for safe operation. So that's how we should see it. And similar to others, it applies to HSE. So I only have 1 minute left. Before I end my session, in PETRONAS, I think last year during my session during the safety forum, I did mention this. So I want to reiterate back. Probably may be useful to others. Like big organizations, we have culture programs. In PETRONAS, we have generative culture program, which is in the Energy Institute, it is the highest culture ladder. So culture generative HSE program, which actually talks about building psychological safety by encouraging people to engage authentically, basically the bosses or the leaders, and providing feedback truthfully. Basically, this applies to employees. Next is embedding psychosocial risk assessment as part of health risk assessment. So dulu, okay, you talk about physical risk. Okay, you talk about biological risk. Like snakes at the, as part of biological hazards around your area. But psychological risk is also part of the things that we look into. So we also have a system, we talk about AI. That is one thing that PETRONAS has and can be implemented in other organizations as well. Lastly is caring the carer. As I mentioned, giving access to this, not only for everybody, but also for HSE is very important. So in Brunei, we call it kawan kita ni. So the reason why we call it kawan kita ni, in Malaysia, PETRONAS, they call it my friends. So we want to make it Bruneian because it applies, it is more, we want to make it localized so that people say, oh, okay, it provides a wholesome services, mental health services to everybody, not just 24/7 helpline, ada yang webinars, online webinars, not just talking about mental health, but physical health juga, because it is somehow interrelated. So these are the things that we do lah. Some of the photos that I'm sharing here are the things that we have been doing for the past, I think, few years. All right, and I'd like to end my session by this one thought, by sharing this one thought. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Caring for workers' mental health begin with caring for those responsible for protecting it. If we want psychological risk management to succeed, we must ensure that the carers, our HSE practitioners mainly, are supported, valued, and cared for. Thank you.
So I actually was trying to come up with so I would like to bring back this morning of he said, how do your partner, how do your husband, how do your wife, and second So I hope that answers the question. So,
Okay.
but the main one, that's the very one. It is true. It was a very good motivation this morning.
Yeah.
I think you enjoyed it. So, so you mentioned that HSE practitioners are often exposed to the same psychological hazards than the clinician. So would you like to expand further on this one?
Okay. Before I answer that question, I think Dr. Fazila Kamsah mentioned about family. Leadership starts with your at home. Alright, so sama je lah macam when we talk about self-care, it's basically that. Like me enjoying seeing or watching my kid playing football in the evening, that is my self-care. So up to you, whether you want to travel, if you have the money to travel. Like myself, like I prefer doing that. My focus would be my kids, and that is my self-care. Going back to your question, Tuan, I think I did raise, I shared earlier, like HSE practitioners are exposed to high-risk activities, high-risk environments. We are also exposed to long hours, especially now if I relate to myself with this new project that we are embarking on, something new, it is a challenge. Sometimes we need to work long hours. And then we also at the same time we have to manage different locations, so that can be an exhausting. It is, yeah. It can be an exhausting thing to do to face, yeah. And then another thing that I want to highlight as well is the challenges that we face in HSE is when you talk about physical, when people get injured, it's something that you can quantify, you can see it. Tapi macam people getting injured, you can't see it. And one question that always bothers me is when people ask me, how do you implement so many things, but how do you measure effectiveness of your culture program? How do you measure, all this AI, SIRA, in short, psychological risk assessment is effective? So my question is if you don't have, you can see the incident trending going down. That is actually one of the key thing, success factor. So, and to me as HSE, you cannot give up. You yourself have to trust yourself that whatever programs that you put are the best ones. So, yeah. So that would be my answer to that question.
So, big applause, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, last but not least, our English panel number 4, Yang Mulia Borhanuddin, Zirwatul, Amal, binti, Haji, Borhanuddin. So, Deputy Secretary General for OSHWA.
Sorry. Okay, are you guys still awake? Yes. Hopefully. Is it my voice too loud? Because I have a big voice. Okay. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Distinguished guests and fellow attendees, Assalamualaikum and Salam Sejahtera. Good afternoon. Before we begin, let me introduce myself again. I'm Zirwatul Amal, binti Haji Borhanuddin, representing OSHWA. Today, allow me to talk about psychosocial risk from a practical safety perspective. My main message is simple. Psychosocial risk is not separate from occupational safety and health. It affects how people think, decide, communicate, report concern, and work safely. I will connect with international evidence, high-risk industry lessons, and local Brunei worker insights, then end with what we can actually do in practice. Okay. So when we talk about workplace safety, we often think first about physical hazard, machinery, chemicals, work at height, vehicles or lifting. But safety is also affected by on how people are managed and how work is organized. A tired worker may miss a warning sign, a worker who is afraid to speak up about a serious hazard, a team with poor communication may misunderstand instructions. So psychosocial risk is not a soft issue. It can become a real safety issue. All right. The issue is supported by evidence. The ILO 2026 report estimates that psychosocial risks are linked to more than 840,000 deaths globally each year, mainly through cardiovascular disease and mental disorders, including self-harm fatality. A safety science review also found links between psychosocial factors and safety behaviors, incidents, accidents, and injuries in high-risk industry. In healthcare, burnout has been linked with patient safety incidents. CDC data also shows high self-harm fatality rates in industries such as construction, mining, agriculture, fishing, and hunting. So the message is simple and clear. Psychosocial risk is not just about feelings. It can be linked to harm, serious illness, and fatal outcomes. Okay. For Brunei, we do not need to wait for psychosocial risk to be named in every regulation before we take action. It already connects to the basic responsibility to protect safety and health. It also connects to risk assessment, safe system of work, welfare, worker participation, and incident prevention. This is also aligned with Brunei's wider direction, healthier workers, safer workplaces, and high quality life under Wawasan Brunei 2035. For OSHWA, it also connects to worker representation, social dialogue, and evidence-based advocacy. A useful local example comes from Jiwa, a Brunei-based community organization. After surveying 113 workers from multiple industries, they identified 4 burnout triggers: low control at work, unsafe work culture, low trust in leadership, and unclear and chaotic system. These findings are very important because they use Brunei-based worker experience. They also shift the question from what is wrong with the worker to what is happening in the work system. So for safety professionals, that is very important. We may not formally assess burnout, but we can help identify workplace conditions that increase risk. Between 13th to 30th April 2026, OSHA has conducted a survey among our safety professionals to have a better understand psychosocial risk in the workplace. Here are the key findings and takeaways from the survey on why psychosocial risk is difficult for our safety professionals. For example, a missing guardrail is visible, a leaking pipe is easily visible, but fear, fatigue, pressure, or low trust are not always visible. Workers may also avoid reporting because they are worried about blame, rotation, or job security. Another challenge is that these risks are linked together to leadership and culture. They cannot be solved only by writing another procedure. HSE cannot manage this alone. It needs HR, operation, supervisor, senior management, and workers to work together. The evidence and the GWA findings can be translated into practical controls. If workers have low control, we can improve planning, involve workers in scheduling, and give clearer decision space. If the culture feels unsafe, we need reporting channel where people can speak without fear. If trust in leadership is low, supervisor must learn to listen, respond, and close the feedback loop. If the system are chaotic, we need clearer roles, priorities, KPIs, and escalation routes. This is the occupational safety and health mindset. We do not look at the individual, we look at the system rating the risk. To close this, psychosocial risk must be a shared responsibility. Employers must provide commitment and resources. Leaders must manage workload, communication, and trust. HSE must include psychosocial risk in risk assessment, inspection, incident investigation, and safety discussion. HR must support welfare, conduct, and grievance processes. Workers must be able to participate and report concerns safely. As for us, OSHWA, we can support worker voice and social dialogue. And my final message is this: psychosocial risk is not about making work easy. It is about making work safe, sustainable, and productive for Brunei workers and organizations. That's all from me. Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. Thank you for your attention, everyone.
Some of you are suddenly
Sorry about that.
sorry. But it's good. So, I have questions. This one. So, we're not working. It's OSHWA. So, what are the common psychological risk factors that you observe?
What is the common psychosocial risk?
Psychosocial risk factors.
So in Brunei workplaces, like you mentioned before, that I have more than 10 years of experience onshore and offshore. So the common that I find is for Brunei workers is fatigue and stress are the most common lah. And this is also reflected with our OSHWA survey that we conducted for our safety professional, where they have stated 74% they agreed that fatigue and stress is the main contributor for our psychosocial risk. 74% of them, they are agreed. Okay.
Thank you. Because of time, we have about a minute last. So I'm going to take from the view here. Let's get a few questions from the audience. As much as I wish to give mic to the audience, I think it's more digital now. So I'll read out the first question and I'll give the question to the first and second distinguished panelists to give their view. Number one, okay, how do we talk to leaders that have strong mindset that young workers should have been more resilient like boomers? In other words, hardcore. I think that's how it's said. Yeah, you guys get that? Yeah, so, yeah, I think maybe I want to come this another one. I feel like to.
That is very good question. So we have a generation gap question here.
I think it's more about if I understand this question, they are saying for young work. I think this is about Iron generation and Generation Z. This is how I understand this question. So I think you can elaborate more about how your view are on this one.
I don't rate Omar as resident, but I I rate them as a strong, fat person. So we, as a new young generation of leaders, what we need to speak to them is their language by showing them the Islam. So, yes, we do have new way to overcome the solution, to come out with a new solution. But sometimes, if we can do some research and give much more data, proven data to them, inshallah, they will see Islam. And they will look up at us as a new leader. Yeah, next vision.
Thank you, Yang Mulia Nurliyana. I think any of the distinguished panelists would like to have a view on that one, or I'll move to the other questions. I think just for the sake of this conversation, I also like to give my view. In our organizations, I'm not speaking on the behalf of Serikandi, but on my organizations, I think I love and respect all my co-workers, respective colleagues, and my team. And I always see them in a different way. Some look like my own siblings, and some I look at like my own children. So I'm mid-40s, by the way. So with this, I think it's about listening to them. I think this listening to them, that's the key. If we don't listen to our co-workers or our team, we will have difficulties to work together with them, and there will be challenges for them to listen to us. So my view is listen. That's the key. Just lend our ears. So next panelist.
Maybe I can give my view as well. I like the idea of, because I attended this workshop and building high resilience solutions. So, it's for everybody. And one of the things that the speaker mentioned about small and big circles. Like I put, leaders and experience and leader outside the small circles. Because why? Outside the small circles, because you cannot control them. They have their own mindset, right? So what we need to control, our moderator mentioned, it change how we approach them. Yeah, because listening to them is a good way of getting support from them. So I believe that works, when dealing with senior leaders. And I try to adapt to different levels of generation. That answers the question.
Very good, Yang Mulia Puan Khairunnisa. Okay, I'll go for the next question because we don't have much time. But I think I like this one as well. Why does some organization does not give acknowledgements or recognitions for good work or workers? How would workers know they're on the right track and meeting boss expectations? Anyone of the respective panelists would like to view on this one?
How important it is for leaders to be more visible, to have that kind of duty of care, taking of care of the employees. Yeah? So again, maybe part of maybe have openness with the leadership, with the leadership team, on this. For example, maybe we can take example of having open policy. Have that discussion with them. Otherwise, if there's a whistleblower, this put it
Whistleblower. That's yeah.
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah, please.
I'll just add my points on this one. The reason probably why they don't give acknowledgement or recognition is because probably there's no system. Sometimes we don't need a system. Sebenarnya, but when there's no system, we need to use a system. So in this case, probably there's no system of acknowledgement. When we go back, when we have incident, we have conflict management. But if we do good, people do good, we acknowledge people. We need to have that because it's carrot and stick approach can. So if the organization doesn't have that information, please have that. It doesn't have to be like, you want to iPhone you want to voucher $100. It's actually simple things. Like, like you can do HSE champions. I think a lot of contractors under the SP, operators, business probably, they do have good acknowledgement system, HSE information system. So similarly, for example, for contractors, construction companies, they're not familiar with this, please reach out to us. I think we can share what system we have and how do we acknowledge good behaviors. Yeah? So basically that's just for
All right, thank you, Yang Mulia, Panisa. I think also there's a lot of contributing factors with there. It's very subjective. As much as I want to read all the questionnaire, I think that's a lot here. But what's this? How do we deal with the culture? Or just take one more, the last one. How do we deal with a culture or mindset that says this is not my responsibility for people who view mental health beyond their functions? I have the answers, but I'll give the floor to the distinguished panelists first. My answer is words. Is it time? Okay.
Everyone plays a role in an organization that requires some form or levels of leadership. It begins by being able to listen and to acknowledge that perhaps there are mistakes and all these issues that may happen, and if there's always that fear that if you open up, then it's like, you showing your vulnerability and weaknesses. But then, based on my own experience, I think it's a matter of being open, and other people will be much more appreciative. And it's okay not to be perfect, but at least you are taking some form of responsibility, because other people are putting their faith and hope in you to succeed. If you literally just give all the love to other people, okay, but us as leaders, we play our role so that we can lead whenever it's necessary. And when those individuals have a name on the job, then perhaps we can ask them, do you have the training necessary for you to lead? Like, macam pelajaran apa dia cakap, ada psychological first aid. Again, I want to look into the because I'm not a mental specialist. My PhD is not in medicine. Mine is in public policy and governance. But having perhaps a framework which we can all operate in, some of these levels of knowledge allows us to get the first step so that we can lead and ask the right questions and to imbue in ourselves the duty of care, regardless of our position in our organization, so that we can elevate the performance and success of our organizations.
Thank you, Yang Tua. Kemudian, Tuan. Yeah, please.
The young generation at work currently, where we can call as Gen Z, we as the X generation usually hard to say no whenever the responsibility is right. We should look up how these Gen Z just push these responsibilities. They can simply just say, this is not my KPI, this is not my due diligence, I don't care.
Yang Mulia, you happen to know there's a lot of Gen Z here, right?
This is a culture that we need to start to embrace, especially to the agenda. I know this is hard. For me also this is hard, but the speak up culture is necessary for this kind of thing, so that we can have a good employer and also a good employee. Definitely for the leaders, please do not just push us. Maybe we can discuss further with the fact, definitely.
Oh, Yang Mulia, I didn't know you were Gen Z too. Thank you. So I think as much as we wanted to answer more of these questions, I think because in respect of time, I think we will end up with words of wisdom from each of the panelists. If you'd like to share one, I believe Madam Puan Khairunnisa have something to say.
Okay, I got something. I don't know where to put this. Well, actually, I want to add one thing. I talk about all those good systems in place, but what I want to the key highlight or key takeaway that I want to highlight here is that you don't have to do something big. You don't have to have big much of some of the organizations that are doing the system for you. But what you can do is that support doesn't always require large programs, as I mentioned earlier. Simple, consistent practices like leaders checking in genuinely, bukan saja kan show you sana kesini buat mission visit, but genuinely engage with the employees working inside, respecting rest time, encouraging open conversations, and recognizing contributions with meaningful positive change. And it does make a difference to psychosocial risk ultimately. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Yang Mulia. So I think that's a wrap up for our panel number 3. So again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having us on the panel. And anything else to say? No? That's all. Thank you very much.
We give a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to our fantastic moderator and panelists for today. With that, to present the token of appreciation, I would like to invite up on the stage Yang Mulia Puan Umi Khadijah binti Haji Zaini, the Director of Human Resources and Corporate Services Division. With that, ladies and gentlemen, for the first token of appreciation, I would like to call upon our incredible moderator, Yang Mulia Tuan Muhammad Ikbar bin Omar. He is the Corporate HSE Manager from Serikandi Industry, HSE Group. Thank you so much. Up next, I would like to call upon Yang Mulia Puan Nurliyana binti Mohammad Nur. Thank you so much. And up next, I would like to call upon Yang Mulia Tuan Dr. Abdul Malik bin Haji Omar. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call upon Yang Mulia Puan Nur Khairunnisa binti Muhammad Jasni. And last but definitely not the least, I would like to call upon Yang Mulia Puan Nurul Zirwatul Amal binti Haji Borhanuddin. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call upon our moderator and panelists together with Yang Mulia Puan Umi to please take the center stage for the group photo. All right, thank you so much. We give them a final round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, our final speakers and moderator for this final panel session for the day. With that, we have now come to the closing segment of the Safety Forum 2026.